Childhood toys we all had as kids. Now, growing up in the early 2000s, I think it's valid to say that we grew up in an awesome time for toys. Dare I even say the best time. There were so many iconic toys that were created for us as kids in the 2000s that I still see today, mostly because of those TikTok nostalgic slideshows that pop up on my feed from time to time. Like, what happened to toys, man? All these new gen toys are so brain rot. And don't get me started on the Galaxy Gas epidemic. Kids these days be huffing on that Galaxy Gas. Like, what happened to that Galaxy skin? Anyways, let's reminisce about the amazing toys that we used to play with. Starting off with an absolute classic, Beyblades. Now, everybody knows what Beyblades are, especially dudes, because they were all a craze back in the early 2000s to 2010s because every single kid owned one, or at least knew about them. And I remember first finding out about Beyblades through the 2018 anime that aired on TV, Beyblade Metal Fusion. And ever since watching the first episode of that show, I was immediately hooked. You bet your ass every single Saturday morning at 11 a.m. I was watching Beyblade Metal Fusion while eating lunch and singing along to the intro. And watching and obsessing over the anime constantly, of course I had to go get myself a Beyblade of my own. So one fateful Saturday, I asked my dad if we could go to Toys R Us so I could get myself a Beyblade, and that's what we did. Now, I don't remember exactly which Beyblade I got, but it was either Flame Libra or Dark Bull. Now, my brother and I would always face each other for our Beyblades on our living room floor, and it was an amazing time. Dude, I really thought Beyblades could do their special moves in real life, like how they do them in the show. Like, I thought my Beyblade would start flying into outer space and hitting a star blast on motherfuckers. But the problem with playing with Beyblades on the floor, for a good majority of the time, they wouldn't even collide and would just spin away to Africa. So we definitely were in need of a Beyblade stadium, and we knew exactly how we were gonna acquire one. Now, we used to go to an after-school program, and they had this system where you could acquire something called Nook Bucks for doing your homework there, and you could exchange them for toys and other things, sort of like a book fair. And they just so happened to have a Beyblade stadium on sale for 15 Nook Bucks, and we just had to get it. So every single day, we completed our homework, stacked up that bread, and eventually combined our Nook Bucks together to purchase a Beyblade stadium. Say goodbye to the floor, because we had this dope-ass stadium to play on now. That was made of the flimsiest plastic ever, but shit, it was still cool. We played on that stadium so much till it started cracking. And dude, customizing your Beyblades was also so much fun if you had multiple Beyblades, because you could make the most OP Beyblade combo. That wrench tool really had me thinking I was a Harvard level engineer. And we actually got Beyblades banned at our elementary school because at first we would play with our Beyblades on the concrete outside, but that would absolutely shred and destroy the bottoms of our Beyblades. So we started playing with them on the slide, but that caused us to block people from actually going down the slide, so they got banned for good. Now we gotta talk about Bakugans. Now, Bakugans were the shit back in the day. I didn't really have a crazy collection like the other kids did, but I had a few like the red dragon one and a blue Bakugan. Now, I didn't even remember how to play the actual game because I remember in the package for them, it would come with a magnetic card that said the stats of your Bakugan, and I completely ignored that and would just throw my Bakugans at the ground and sometimes at my friends, pretending they'd actually spawn these big ass monsters. And I used to be obsessed with the little magnet that'd be attached at the bottom of every Bakugan, and I would just play with it under the desk and throw my Bakugan at things made of metal to see if it could stick on them. And I also used to watch the Bakugan show that would air on TV at the time, but like I wasn't really that into it and only watched a few episodes. And speaking about toys, I have a very special announcement to make. I've made plushies. I'm working with YouTubes to deliver you guys these awesome plushies of my Stickman character, and it is now live. The website is up and working, and you can now order one of these awesome plushies straight to your home. I'm also running a giveaway for 3 lucky people to win, so make sure you enter using the link in the description. And if you do decide on ordering one, please tag me on Instagram and I'll repost your story. Thank you so much to YouTubes for helping me make this possible, and back to the video. Now let's talk about Pokemon cards. Now, Pokemon cards were the shit back in the day, and low-key they still are. Like, I used to be so into collecting Pokemon cards, buying Pokemon packs, the tins, and opening them. I even used to watch people on YouTube unbox cards. Like, you guys don't know nothing about Super Duper Danny. I was watching every single upload every day when I got home from school. Like, I was a loyal supporter, man. And dude, don't even get me started on the Pokemon games, man. I love watching people record off their capture cards, walkthroughs of themselves playing the games. Like Super Skarmory, man, the Flaming Spade, like OG as fuck, bro. My brother and I would battle each other for Pokemon cards a lot, but we didn't play the game properly because you were supposed to use the energy cards to use your moves, but we just said screw that and played it without them because who actually played the game correctly other than the TCG sweats who'd enter in tournaments. And I used to be kind of sly with it, you know, like really out here on the streets jugging and finessing other kids. Not something to be proud of, but I used to scam kids for their Pokemon cards by either trading them fake Pokemon cards, overhyping a card to trade to someone, or even just straight up stealing. Like, my dad would buy me Pokemon cards and he didn't know they were fake, but I could tell because you could check the back of the cards, and if it were a lighter color, that meant it was fake. Now, instead of getting mad and telling my dad to get me new cards, I saw an opportunity here. Now, we were around the 3rd or 4th grade, so people weren't really the smartest at spotting stuff like this, so I would just trade people fake cards in exchange for real cards. I remember I had this Lugia Legend card that had like 2 halves, and I wanted this other Lugia EX from one of my classmates, and I offered her my Lugia for hers by hyping it up, saying stuff like, look how cool this card is, it has 2 halves, it says Legend on it, and it also does 200 damage, like what more can you want? And it worked, and she accepted my trade, and I got my coveted Lugia EX. My best trade I've ever made in my Pokemon card career had to be me trading for a base set Charizard. Yes, a real one, by the way. Now let me tell you the story. Now I used to trade with this one kid a lot at the time, and his name was Pablo. Now Pablo, he'd always bring some crazy cards to school to either trade with people or just show off. He was a baller. And this one time, Pablo showed up to school and he whipped out a base set Charizard. Now, if you ever collected Pokemon cards before, you know how rare this Charizard is and how much hype it got back in the day. So right when I saw it, I was already shooting offers at Pablo, offering literally anything I had on me. And then I remembered, Pablo always wanted this one Pokemon card from my brother, and it was a Steelix card because it did a lot of damage and I just so happened to have it on me. So I told Pablo to save the trade, and I ran over to my brother across the schoolyard and told him that Pablo had a base set Charizard, and he was like, "Yo, you're serious?" "Yes, I'm serious, man. Should I trade the Steelix for it?" "Bro, no shit, man. Give me that." And my brother walked over to Pablo and traded him for the Charizard. Here's proof if you don't believe me. You already know my brother and I were so goddamn happy for the next few days. Best trade of my life. And this other time, I straight up stole 2 Pokemon cards from someone. But hear me out first. So I used to go to this after school program and I would do my homework there. So this one time, this kid brought his Pokemon cards and showed them to me, and he had an entire collection of base set Pokemon cards, and I was like, damn, these cards are cool. Want to trade? Sure. So I'm out here giving my offers, you know, do my salesman pitch and whatever. But then his friend comes over and starts cock-blocking my trades, talking about, "Hey, don't trade those cards, they're rare." And in my head, I'm like, bro, shut up, man. Let me do my thing. So I do a little convincing, and he finally trades me 2 of his cards, a Jolteon and a Ninetales, and you know I had to enforce the no trade backs rule too. Now fast forward a day, and I come back to the homework room. He starts asking me for a trade back, and I'm like, but we said no trade backs. Give me my cards back, man, please. So now I'm like, fine, I'll bring your cards back tomorrow, okay? So I get home and I tell my brother that he wanted his cards back, and he says to me, "Just say you lost them." What's he gonna say? And at first I'm like, nah, that's evil. But then I thought about it. This guy broke the sacred agreement of no trade backs. You can't just break that rule and run off scot-free. The no trade back rule is a sacred agreement that came from generations ago between 2 Pokemon card traders that cannot be broken even through space and time. So I was like, you know what? We'll give him his Jolteon back, but we're keeping the Ninetales because it looks cooler. Sounds good. Hey, I lost the Ninetales, but I found your Jolteon. Here you go. That's completely my bad, man. I'm so sorry. And he looked a little mad, but he was fine with it, knowing damn well that shit was not lost at all and sitting in my Pokemon card binder at home. Hey, man, I don't make the rules, man. He broke the rule. I swear I'm reformed now, guys. The scammer days are over. Now we gotta talk about silly bands. Now, similar to Pokemon cards, silly bands were also heavily traded in the school economy and had a lot of hype to them. Silly bands were basically these plastic bands shaped in either animals or objects like a star that a lot of kids would collect back then. Every single kid was coming to school iced out wearing their silly bands, I remember. And I remember having a silly band that would glow in the dark, and in the school market, that was worth at least 10 to 5 silly bands. Shit was a mythical pull. And if you had the most silly bands back then, you were the coolest kid in school, without a doubt. And finally, let's talk about Razor scooters. Now, I never owned one myself, but I know people who have, and I have a friend who would always ride his scooter to school. I'd be waiting at the park for my friends to come to school and see this dude coming from a mile away in his scooter, looking goofy as hell. Like, man, I wanted one so bad when I was younger, but never got one. And I know most of you guys know the pain of hitting your shin with the back of one of these scooters. That pain has gotta be on par with getting shot or something. It's terrible. Alright, well, I hope you all enjoyed reminiscing on these childhood toys with me. See you all in the next video. Whenever that is.
Bro thinks he's car.
Anyways, I'm out. Bye.